going to close off today with a performance by Lara St. Strad magazine has described her as something of a phenomenon, and all I can do is say, and how.
I've noticed from sitting throughout the morning and afternoon that most people sort of start out with an introduction, and then they sort of have what they want to say, and they have a conclusion. So I'm going to do that in a slightly different way and introduce myself by playing. This is an arrangement of Czardas, which was written for me by Lara St. And at the piano, this is Lydia Wong from Toronto. have been doing it since I was 2. I am, of course, Canadian-born, and I live in New York City. And a lot of people today have spoken about the differences between Canada and the States, and I'm not gonna. Instead, what I've been trying to do lately with my life, actually it all sort of started with the release of my first recording a couple of years ago. I've always been thinking, well, I mean, since I was sort of with it, since about the age of 12, I suppose, what's wrong exactly with classical music? Why am I playing these concerts to, well, in the business we call it blue hairs? Why is the audience so elderly and literally dying off? And I thought there's got to be a way to make a difference somehow. Even if I'm just one person, one violinist, maybe I can make a difference. So when I recorded my first CD, I thought to myself, well, here's some incontestably great works of Bach for violin solo. And I thought, I put everything I had into this CD. I was really proud of it. And I thought, I want people to hear this. So I decided to do something a little bit different for the cover. And it had a result in a way. That CD sold 35,000 copies, which in rock or pop or something like that is pathetic. But in classical, it's platinum. And another thing it did was, because of the unusualness of the cover of the first one, it gave me a lot of free publicity. I didn't, have the money at the time to go out and buy any publicity. Well, no classical artist really does. So all of a sudden I had CNN calling, People magazine, et cetera, and still to this day, whenever I'm very good about publicity for the orchestras when I go to perform with them, et cetera, always working very closely with the marketing departments, and I'll do every interview because I know how badly they need the exposure. And of course, there's a lot of media people here today, and there has to be a twist. I mean, it can't just be some violinist playing Bach. People have been doing that for 250 years. So whenever, even to this day, when I end up doing an interview either by phone or on radio or on TV or something like that, the first question is not, what's your idea of Mahler or sonata form or something like that? Never. It's always like, so how come you pose nude on your CD covers? Every single time. Now, first of all, for the record, anybody who goes down to the store thinking they're going to get something from Playboy is going to be vastly disappointed. There's absolutely no nudity whatsoever, and it's a very artsy photo. It was just a little bit unusual. Some people took it wrong, but I've continued on that sort of route for quite some time at this point, because I've found that what it's doing is reaching another demographic through this publicity that before was not possible for classical musicians because the interest wasn't there. So once the spark of interest was given by the first time anything like this had ever been done for classical music, then all of a sudden it hit a whole different demographic. I have a website, actually, which is the hugest in the business, the biggest for any classical solo artist. And I get letters all the time from farmers in Iowa and even some man in the Sudan or something saying, I heard about your CD on CNN or something like that, or NPR, or People magazine. I went out and bought it, or they say, I bought it because it had a funky cover. This and that. I listened to it. Now I think Bach is really great, Can you give me some more ideas? What can I listen to? So I always try to write back to these people. And I think that's a great boon for our art, for what we do. And it's no secret that we're having problems. Another thing I've been doing is the medium of television, of videos, because I've always thought, well, how come pop and rock are so incredibly popular all the time? And obviously it's because they're a little easier to, for the masses or whatever, but also their marketing and publicity ideas are fantastic. And so I've always thought to myself, why can't we just take that and throw it over onto the real stuff? Meaning not putting a beat to Bach or something like that, but using that kind of technique in order to get real, good, wonderful classical music out there. So actually, thanks to bravo. I've done a total of 2 videos with them, thanks to a grant from them. And I just found out yesterday, actually, that the latest one reached number 6 in Canada, which is not bad for Bach. And a little while ago, I decided to do one independently, because as some of you may have noticed, there's a CD of mine in quite a few bags. I'm not sure quite how many, but what I wanted to do with this new release, which by the way is an independent project, my first independent, so opposite from what Molly Johnson would have been saying, I'm saying, buy it. Because it'll help me. And I've left my label, and I'm sure she and I would have a lot to talk about in that domain. And I'll be doing it direct to distributor, and it should be out in September, October. What you have is a limited pre-release. Anyway, I wanted to have 2 videos for this release, and one of them is the one that's playing right now, the one at number 6. And the other one I did by basically getting a couple of guys from Toronto and running around New York, using all sorts of different places. So I have a video here that I'm going to show in a few minutes, and this is sort of somehow proof of something fun which can be done with real, in this case, Bach, and with actually, I shouldn't hesitate to admit it, I suppose, very little money. And we had a couple of great days running around New York and bribing homeless guys to get out of the way so that we can use this background, bribing hotel people so we could get up on the roof, and some of it's in my own bedroom, and it ended up being very, very funny, and I hope to release this video, it's very short, along with the real release in September. But anyway, I'd just like to say that it's been really amazing listening to everybody today, and just very mind-expanding and everything. Somehow, even if it isn't what I do, I think, in a way, everything helps. So, well, that's the back of my head. Do we? But along the same vein, I don't know if anyone was here at the time, but last February when I played with the Toronto Symphony, there was a huge article in the Toronto Sun on the first page of their entertainment section. I knew very well that if I gave the Sun one of my typical headshots, they'd probably run a little thumbnail picture in the corner and maybe a teensy little blurb. So I gave them this sort of faintly orgasmic looking picture of me and the violin, and sure enough, I got a full color, full page thing. Thanks to that, ticket sales went up like skyrocketed, and I had taxi drivers saying, "Hey, aren't you that violinist who talks about sex or something?" So things like that somehow really make my day, and there will always be I think there's a critic out in Vancouver, aptly named Lloyd Dick. Who likes to do things like call me a bedraggled nymphette and, just sort of put down all that kind of stuff. I feel when classical critics do this, they're shooting themselves in the foot. Because if I were to get discouraged and, start wearing, nuns' outfits or something like that, then these people would be without a job just the way all the rest of us are going to be unless we sort of band together and start bringing what is so great and what has been so great for 300 years into the 22nd century.